Imagine this, a skilled hiker raised in mountains, know every trail, every turn, yet vanished without a single cry for help. This is the story of Emily Carter. Her story begins on September 23, 2005, the day she disappeared in the Appalachian Mountains. She was 24, a nurse at a small hospital in Richmond, and she planned a quiet weekend on the Blue Ridge Trail, alone. 5 years later, hunters found her bones under the roots of a century-old oak, only 20 miles from the last place she was seen alive. The ground kept a secret for years. Emily grew up in a family that lived for trails. Her father, John Carter, taught rock climbing for many years, and her mother, Susan, was a high school biology teacher who often led students into the wild. Every weekend, the family went to the mountains. By 18, Emily knew the Appalachians better than many local guides. The wild felt like home to her. This was the world she trusted. After college, she moved to Richmond, but the mountains kept calling month after month. In September 2005, she worked in the intensive care unit. Her coworker said she looked worn out after hard shifts. On Wednesday, September 21st, she took 2 days off and told her friend Rachel Thomas she would go hiking. She did not give a full route, only that she would follow a familiar path in the Sky Meadows Pass area. On the morning of September 22nd, she loaded her backpack into her red Honda Civic at 7:00 a.m. and drove out of Richmond. Cameras at a gas station caught her car at 9:40 a.m. in Front Royal. She fueled up, bought a bottle of water and an energy bar. Cashier Mark Davis remembered her because she asked about the mountain weather and picked up extra batteries for her flashlight. At 10:30 a.m., Emily parked at the lot by trail number 4, the path to Stony Man Overlook. In the visitor log, she wrote her name and a plan to return on Sunday, September 25th. Each choice looked safe. Each step felt known. Beside her name was the time, 10:45 a.m., and a note that she would hike alone. Trail number 4 is rated as moderate. The climb to the overlook is about 3 hours, and the way down is about 2.5 hours. The full loop is 8.5 miles. That September, weather shifted fast, with morning fog and rain by late day. Fog can hide more than stone and trees. Emily was last seen by hiker David Riggs at 2:00 p.m. on September 23rd. He was on the trail with his wife Carol when he met Emily about a mile from the lookout. Riggs said she was heading down and looked calm. Dark blue jacket, jeans, brown hiking boots, a medium gray backpack on her back. They traded a hello and moved on. No one knew that moment would echo. When Emily did not show up for work on Monday, September 26th, her boss, Barbara Cole, reached out to Rachel Thomas. Rachel said Emily was due back the night before, but her phone stayed silent. Barbara tried to reach Emily's parents in North Carolina, but they were away. On Tuesday morning, Rachel went to Emily's house. No car in the driveway, a full mailbox, and neighbors said they had not seen her since the weekend. Rachel called Richmond police, but they first refused to file a missing person report, saying it had not been 48 hours yet. Only on Wednesday, September 28th, did police begin the search. Officer James Wilson contacted the Shenandoah National Park Service. Ranger Michael Stone found Emily's car in the lot by trail number 4. It was locked, with sunglasses, some CDs, and an empty water bottle on the front seat. On Thursday morning, a team of 8 rangers and 4 volunteers started the search. They walked the whole trail twice and swept side paths and ravines within 2 miles of the route. Hours passed like days for those who waited. At Stony Man Overlook, they found a wrapper from the same energy bar Emily bought at the gas station, but no clear link could be made. Time was already slipping. On October 5th, a group of volunteer rescuers from Page County, led by Tom Harris, joined in. They brought tracking dogs, but the dogs could not hold a scent. Late September rain had washed the trails clean. On October 7th, Emily's parents, John and Susan Carter, returned from their trip and drove to Shenandoah at once. John Carter, with 30 years of hiking in those hills, joined the cruise. He thought his daughter might have stepped off the main trail toward one of the waterfalls they loved when she was a child. The search ran until October 20th. Teams checked 17 meters of paths, 4 waterfalls, 3 caves, and many narrow cuts in the rock. Rangers used a helicopter to scan the roughest ground, but nothing turned up. Cold air bit harder each night. Night air dropped below freezing, and the park shut down the operation. Emily Carter was now marked as missing. Detective Robert Clark of the Virginia State Police took over. Clark spoke with her co-workers, her neighbors, and her friends. All said she was careful and steady. No debts, no legal trouble, no fights at work. He pulled her phone records for the month before she vanished. Most calls were about work or family. One number stood out. A man named Brad Morrison had been in touch with her all through August. The circle was tightening. Clark learned that Morrison was a guide with a tour company and that he met Emily on one of her hikes. Brad Morrison, 27, lived in the town of Lure, about an hour from where Emily went missing. He worked for Blue Ridge Adventures, a group that ran hiking and biking trips in the Appalachian. Co-workers said he was a skilled guide who knew the land better than many rangers. In his first talk with police, Morrison said he met Emily in late July when she joined a weekend group. After that, they traded numbers and met a few times. He said the bond was friendly with no romance. It sounded neat, almost too neat. The air in the room felt thin. Detective Clark checked Morrison's alibi for the weekend of September 24th and 25th. Morrison said he led a group to Dark Hollow Falls, but company records showed the tour was canceled for bad weather. When Clark pressed this point, Morrison changed his story and said he was home alone that weekend. Clark got a warrant to search his house and his truck. The house looked clean, but in the bed of the pickup they found stains that could be blood. Samples went to the state lab. 3 weeks later, results came back. The blood was from a deer. The thread slipped from the hand. A door seemed to close, but it did not lock. Morrison said the stains came from helping a friend move a carcass after a hunt a month earlier. His friend Kyle Johnson backed that up. With no grounds to arrest, the detective released him. The doubt stayed. A thin fear began to grow. The winter of 2005 and the spring of 2006 passed with no new clues. Detective Clark kept in touch with Emily's parents, but nothing fresh came in. The case began to slip into the archive of unsolved files. The voice of the case went quiet, but not dead. Silence settled in. In the summer of 2006, people in the mountains saw a woman who looked like Emily more than once. Callers told police, but each time it was just another hiker. One report came from Ranger Michael Stone, who said he saw a girl in a blue jacket near Lewis Falls. When a team reached the spot, the trail was empty. Shadows play tricks and hearts see what they need. At the same time, Emily's parents hired a private investigator, Samuel Hart from Washington. Hope flickered, then thinned. Hart worked missing person cases and had a solid name. He spoke to every witness again and read the files with care. He saw that Morrison guided trips in the same area where Emily was lost. A simple link can carry heavy weight. That link was hard to ignore. The private investigator started to dig into Morrison's past and found uneasy signs. In 2003, a tourist named Jessica Wright told police the guide had harassed her on a hike. The case never reached court for lack of proof. Old warnings often sit in plain sight. A pattern seemed to stir. Hart found another complaint. A woman named Linda Rogers said that a year earlier, Brad kept urging her to take a private tour, though she liked group hikes. When she said no, he called her at home for weeks and showed up at her job. Linda never filed a report, but she told friends. The picture grew darker. Fear grows when doors do not open. Hart brought all of this to Detective Clark. Clark agreed to re-interview Morrison, but the guide vanished. The timing felt cold. It felt like the story moved under their feet. The owner of Blue Ridge Adventures said Brad had missed a week of work and would not pick up his phone. No one opened the door at his home, and neighbors had not seen his truck for days. Police put out a warrant for Morrison. 3 days later, his pickup turned up in a mall lot on the edge of Roanoke, 100 miles from Lure. The truck was locked, the keys tucked under the driver mat. Brad's things were inside, his wallet with papers and cash still there. The search for Morrison ran for a month with no result. It looked like he stepped off the map. Detective Clark said the guide might have taken his own life, knowing arrest was near. The case bent toward a grim end. The Emily Carter case hit a wall again, but now police felt they knew the name of the killer. Certainty without proof can haunt you. It whispers at night when you try to sleep. Emily's parents did not accept the suicide idea. John Carter believed the guide was hiding and would surface one day. Susan pushed to keep searching for her daughter, hoping at least to find her body and lay her to rest. Their hope had sharp edges. Grief can be sharp and still keep moving. Hart kept working the case for 6 more months at his own cost. He searched many empty buildings within 50 miles of where Emily vanished. He walked places where light fades early. He would not let go. Dental records confirmed the dead were Emily. The match was clear. Her family was told at once, but they did not speak to the press. John and Susan wanted one thing, a burial for their child. At the site, experts worked with care. The way the bones lay told a hard truth. The body had been placed under the roots on purpose. This was not chance. Animals and time do not stack a person like that. Someone had used the old oak like a hidden grave. That thought changed the air. Fear moved in. Medical examiner Dorothy Lang looked over the bones and found a chill detail. Thin cuts marked some ribs in the skull, clean lines made by a sharp blade. Not the work of teeth. Not a fall. These cuts looked chosen and neat. Then came a worse sign. A thin metal wire lay among the wrist bones, coiled as if the hands had been tied behind the back. Lang said the body had likely been held like that for a long while. The jacket held a clue as well. Patches of plant glue, the kind used in traps, were on the fabric in lines and spots. The pattern was odd, and no one could say why it was there. The shape of the scene kept getting darker. Inside the pack, some things had stayed. A license, a bank card, a small photo of her parents kept dry in a plastic sleeve. But the phone was gone. The cash was gone. A first aid kit and a compass were gone too. Her parents said she never hiked without those. Gaps can speak louder than the things left behind. These gaps did. By the skull lay a small wooden shape. It looked like an animal, maybe a deer or a dog. It was rough, carved by hand with a plain knife. No prints were on it, but the wood showed fresh cuts. It had been made not long before she died. A token like that is not a stray. A token like that is a mark. Detective Walker opened the old files from 5 years back and saw the Morrison angle in a new light. Maybe Brad was not a hunter but prey. Maybe someone took him too. The frame of the case turned. Walker planned a new search for Morrison, this time as a likely victim, not a suspect. When the ground shifts, you have to move fast and slow at once. Lab staff tried to set the time of death from the bones and the clothes. The decay said she died near the day she was lost. That meant she was held somewhere else, then moved and placed under the roots. The spot was deep in the woods, off the tourist paths. You reach it only on foot, through dense trees, and the hike takes hours even for a fit guide. The person who did this knew the land well. He could move at night. He could vanish in brush and rock like water. That skill narrows the field, and it adds fear. Ranger Tom Barkley had worked the area for 15 years. He told Walker only one wild path led to that oak. Some old hands used it, seasoned hunters who knew the woods like a map in their heads. Barkley gave a few names of locals who might know that way. A small list can loom large when the map is this wide. Walker started to knock on doors. One name stood out. Charles Murphy. A hunter, 60 years old, once a lumberjack. He lived in a small place 10 mi from the oak. Neighbors said he kept to himself and spent his days in the trees. Walker went to see him. The old man was tired, but he spoke. He knew the oak. He had been there many times. He said that 5 years back he saw signs that someone else had been there. Snapped branches, prints, the ash of a fire. Walker asked why he never told the search teams. Murphy said he did not think it mattered. Other hunters came through and he did not read papers or watch the news, so he had not heard about the missing hiker. He agreed to a lie test. The result said he spoke true. Walker also took DNA. No link came up. A door closed, but the path went on. While that moved, the wooden figure went under a new lens. Carving expert Margaret Cole said the piece was made from maple burl, a rare growth from very old trees. Carvers prize it. It costs real money. She looked at the cuts and the grain. The maker was left-handed and used Pro Tools. The simple look hid skill. The hands that made it knew wood. Craft can betray a man even when he leaves no print. This clue had teeth. Walker built a list of woodworkers within a 100-meter radius of the site. There were 23 names. Most had clear alibis for the week Emily vanished. 3 could not be reached. They were dead or had moved out of state. One name pulled the eye. Walter Hines, 42, a carver near Lure. He made tourist gifts and knew the Shenandoah Range well. Neighbors said he was left-handed and went to the woods to gather his stock. Then came a chill echo. Hines had dropped out of town around the same time Brad Morrison disappeared. His shop was locked. The tools stayed. The man did not. The owner of the place said the rent stopped and Hines was gone without a word. It felt like someone turning off a light. Walker got a warrant and opened Hines' workshop. It was a big shed, packed with wood, tools, and finished work. On the bench, small animal figures lay in a row. The style matched the piece found near Emily. Forensics swabbed the worktop and found traces of blood. It was human, but too old to read the DNA. On the floor near the table, they found hairs that could be from a fair-haired woman like Emily. A map hung on the wall. It showed the hills around the oak. Red crosses marked spots in the forest. One cross matched the place where Emily lay. Notes sat by each cross with initials and dates. By the cross at Emily's site were the letters EK and a date from the week she was lost. The map spoke with a thick voice. Other marks drew more dread. One was near the lot where Brad Morrison's truck had turned up. It had the letters BM2 by the cross. Some other crosses matched old lost cases, places where hikers went missing and were never found. The room got small when they saw that. Patterns can burn a hole in your calm. Walker sent teams to each mark on the map. Forensic crews and dog units combed the ground with slow care. At the cross with Brad's letters, they found male bones and scraps of clothes under the roots of an old tree. Dental charts said it was the missing guide. The bones showed the same neat cuts on the ribs. The wrists carried the same thin wire. By the skull lay a new wood piece, the same hand, this time a small bear. Two more marks gave up human remains. One set was a middle-aged man with no papers and no clear name. The other set was a woman, likely the tourist who had vanished 3 years ago in the next county. 4 victims, 1 method, 1 maker. The shape of the truth was not a guess now. It was a line. Lang gave a cause of death for all 4. Slow blood loss. Many shallow cuts on the arms and the legs made with a blade that held a sharp edge. The wire that bound their hands was plain steel snare wire, sold in hunting shops all over the state. No way to trace a roll to one man. The glue on the clothes was a trap glue made from sap of local trees. An old way, used by hunters and foresters who learned from older hands. Skill and patience live in those ways. So does a quiet kind of danger. The hunt for Hines went on for 6 months. Police checked other states. They spoke with kin and friends. No trace came. The man had left like smoke. Walker told the press he thought Hines might have taken his life when he saw the net close. In time, the case was closed. The files named Walter Hines as a serial killer. The 4 sets of remains were given to their families. Emily's parents could finally hold a funeral. The church was quiet. The ground was cold. The goodbye was heavy and kind. Even then, the case held holes. No one could say why he did it. He had not taken cash or cards. He had not done sex crimes. The minds who study such men said he liked the act of the kill itself. A ritual with wood and marks and control. A habit that needed no prize. A mask with no eyes. The thought makes the spine stiff. In town, the old trees that hold roots like rooms turned into dark signs. People kept away. Tourists gave those paths a wide berth. Hunters told new blood the story of the Carver killer. The tale dug in and would not leave. Emily Carter's name became a warning. Do not hike alone in wild places, even on trails you know. A safe path can hold sharp teeth. Beauty can be a trap if you are alone and far. The lesson is simple and hard. Dear listeners, this is where our story of the loss and strange death of Emily Carter must end. Let it remind you that harm can crouch in places that look bright and calm. Let it tell you that some truths sleep under roots and rock for years, and only wake when someone brave and patient pulls them into the light. He checked old mines, hunting cabins, and even dead cars left in the woods. Every effort fell flat. Silence can sound like a warning. The quiet closed in. 3 years went by. The Emily Carter case was marked cold. Detective Clark retired, and a young investigator, Daniel Walker, took his place and only gave the old files a formal look. Her parents began to accept the loss and stopped active searches. Brad Morrison never showed. He was listed as missing, but the active search ended after a year. His co-workers thought he had left the state and taken a false name far away. Time can smooth pain, but it does not erase fear. In the fall of 2010, exactly 5 years after Emily was last seen, something happened in the Shenandoah Mountains that stirred the case back to life. Sleep broke. Local hunters Rick and Dave Patterson were tracking a wounded deer when they strayed into a quiet slice of forest about 20 minutes from the trail where Emily was last seen. They followed a thin line of blood through the leaves. The woods were still. They did not know what waited under that hill. The deer slipped behind a huge oak that had stood for centuries. The tree rose on a low hill. Its roots spread out to make a kind of shelter the size of a small room. Rick Patterson leaned under those roots, hoping to spot the deer, and saw something else. Under the roots lay human bones, half hidden by dirt and leaves. Near the bones, the brothers saw torn clothing and a backpack. The jacket fabric had kept its color enough to show a dark blue shade. The air felt heavy, like the woods were holding breath. Rick at once recalled a story of a missing hiker in the local paper years earlier. The brothers did not touch a thing and called police right away. A team of forensic experts led by Detective Walker came to the site. They took photos of the remains in place, then lifted the bones with care and collected every item that might matter. The earth had given up its secret.